Iran. Michael Makovsky joins us now, President and CEO of the Jewish Institute for National Security, a leading Washington, D.C. based policy and education organization. Michael, where do you think we're at in this conflict? As the president, one thing he has confirmed is that he told everyone involved in the blockade, essentially the Navy, get ready for a longer blockade.
Yeah. Brian, thanks for having me again. I think we're approaching, I think, soon a pivot point. There are a few ways this could go. Obviously, there's a negotiated deal, which I think is very unlikely, which we could talk about. We could continue with the blockade, or we could soon resume military action while maintaining the blockade.
So what do you hope happens?
I hope for the latter, because I think if you want to end this ordeal, this war sooner, I think you're going to need to resume military action while maintaining the blockade. I give the president a lot of credit. I think the blockade, which my organization recommended like 2 months ago, I think has been very effective. But I remain wary that the Iranian leadership, such as it is still going to agree to an acceptable deal. A deal that's acceptable to President Trump. So I think for a couple of reasons. I think the nukes is the most important issue that they have to resolve. I don't see them giving that up or allowing America or access to the facilities and able to extract the enriched uranium. And I also think because of the leadership problems, which result from America and Israel killing all the top leaders in Iran, I don't think there's a leader alive with the credibility to make the necessary concessions. Ayatollah Khomeini, the first leader of the revolution in Iran, the leader of the first Islamic Republic, talked about basically drinking the poison chalice when they made a deal with Iraq to end that war in the late 80s. I don't think you have a leader right now that has that kind of credibility to drink the poison chalice and make a deal with the United States.
I guess so. I mean, the other thing is they might have to make a deal. I mean, you got to get to the point where they have to make a deal. That's the only thing besides without military pressure. So I think Scott Bessent, pressure's on his shoulders. He thought that shut down and sanctioned 34 agencies yesterday. And I think the blockade, I saw some video of a Chinese vessel getting through. I don't know. I have to trust what I see on social media. But I don't really hear much else happening about anything getting through. So the Iranians have nowhere to they pump their oil. They got nowhere to put it. So they're about to hit that, they say, with this week.
Yeah, right. You're right. You could argue that. I mean, it's a legitimate approach and say, look, they have no choice. Let's just wait this out a little longer, which is a very, President Trump might want to do and say, let's just play this out. Let's see how this week goes. Let's see if they resort to pressure. The thing is, I personally, first of all, any deal we cut with the Iranians, I wouldn't trust. So I'd only trust what we see that they're doing. So I wouldn't bank on any commitment about anything they're going to do going forward. I personally would prefer no deal. And but if again the military pressure, and the blockade is so great, and it resolves the nuclear issue, I think that would be great. I'm just skeptical. I mean, if you're a senior Iranian leader, and you're with the IRGC, and they're the guys running things, they're the ones with the guns, I still think their gut is not to give up the nukes, because that would be a tremendous capitulation, which they couldn't stomach, but to just try to ride out, because all they care about is staying in power. They don't really care about the people. See,
I mean, all this, Michael, but it is not funding the proxies, the current uranium, and no program in the future. But what about this? This is cut 9.
The people running the regime, their only objective is to survive and stay in power. The amount of economic peril that the blockade will put on Iran is real. Eventually, it could cause an economic collapse. But they don't care about the suffering of their people. Whether the electricity is on or whether there's long gas lines or other economic plight that the people will suffer. They will not give in my judgment. What we need to do is finish the objectives in terms of the military objectives that have been assigned to the Israeli forces and to the American forces, and let's finish what we started.
and he wants to finish by getting rid of their ballistic missile program. That was left out of the JCPOA, and that's what you guys got hit with in 2025, and that's what the whole region got hit with in 2026.
Yeah. So first of all, as I know you agree, I think General Jack Keane is outstanding, and
the best.
Yeah, he's the best. I completely agree. I think he's been outstanding on this and everything. So I agree with General Keane on this. I think I agree with him. I think it's unlikely they would cut a deal that would give up their nukes. Again, an acceptable deal. And I think, therefore, I would up the pressure on the regime. You could wait a few more days. You say, let's see if the oil system gets so constipated that because they can't release the oil, they can't sell the oil, so they can't produce the oil, starts hurting the fields, and it puts more of their oil workers and energy workers and anybody involved in exporting their oil out of work, which will raise the economic pressure. I do think probably my guess is that they'll be unlikely to cut a deal. It's possible, but I think it's unlikely. Therefore, if we resume military action, the value of that is we denigrate their missile capability more. And I think the big question, if we do resume military action, will be the nukes. There's clearly a U.S. plan to deal with damaging, making inoperable the nuclear facilities that are in Iran and extracting the enriched uranium. But it's obviously risky because you got to create a security bubble. So if President Trump decides it's too risky, he can say, okay, fine, I'm going to weaken this regime enough, and I'm going to bomb their ballistic missiles, etc. But I want to stop military action only when I leave the regime really weak. He could do that two ways. He could keep doing the blockade, or he could consider also taking out their oil export facilities, because ultimately I think the way this war is going to be, the final verdict on this war, I think, is going to be made by the Iranian people. We could weaken
it could be months. It could be months, but
it could be.
But you got to plow the ground to give them a shot so they're not slaughtered again.
Exactly. We have to protect them that they're not, and we have to set the conditions for them to weaken the regime. By the way, there are other ways to do it. One is obviously to economically debilitate the regime, which we're doing now with the blockade, and we could do even more if we. The risk of taking out their oil export facilities, it could lead the Iranians to attack even more vigorously, the Emirati and the Saudi facilities. But you want to do, the Iranian people are going to be the ones that are going to bring down this regime. If they do that, then this war is a grand slam.
What have you heard, Michael? Michael, what have you heard? Because I hear the unrest is starting. Have you heard that significantly? Any significance or?
I've heard, but I also hear that they're a little demoralized, the people, because when, the U.S. Government starts talking about, well, there is already regime change. I think it's important. I think it would be useful, and I think Trump has done a great job, but I think it would be useful for him to talk to the Iranian people again, like he did on the first day of the war on February 28th, and eventually say, look, we support you. We're going to weaken this regime more, but then we're going to turn it over to you because this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, is what he said in February 28th. I think it's important that he make sure to maintain the morale of the Iranian people, because I think they're the most powerful weapon we haven't unleashed yet.
I hear you. I guess we'll see what happens, because the Gulf states are going to be key because they're going to be targeted. And why do you think the UAE was targeted more than even Israel?
It's a good question. First of all, I think because they had a lot of short-range missiles that and that are harder to stop. So I think what Israel did in the 12-day war last year and what the United States and Israel did before during this war is, I think they've been hitting especially a lot of the ballistic missiles, but they had a lot of short-range missiles. So one, I think it's just an easy target. Two, I think the Emiratis represent everything the Iranians are not in the Muslim world in the region. They're moderate. They have diplomatic relations with Israel. They want to, it's been a great haven. Dubai has been such an unbelievably popular city for the rich and famous and others to go to. So, they want to damage that, I think, also. But I think what's interesting with the Emiratis is throughout all this, they've stayed with the Abraham Accords that President Trump brokered in 2020. They've maintained close relations. In fact, the Israelis, has been reported, have sent troops and Iron Dome for the first time out of the country and help the Emiratis defend against Iranian missiles. So they see the Israelis, I think, this war is clarifying their relationships. The Israelis stood by them. And by the way, the fact that they're leaving OPEC shows how they feel about the Saudis, which is not very positive, obviously. And they feel the Saudis have not been helpful enough to them.
Do you think Israel has to make a choice between the Saudis and UAE?
No, I don't think so. I think they can make, they would welcome normalization with Saudi. That would be the ultimate goal here, I think. But there's no question I see closer Emirati-Israeli relations coming out of this right now.
Interesting. And the Israeli people, for the most part, I know you're not there right now, but for the Israeli people, how do they feel? Because if this war starts again, they were getting hit. Their missile defense, let's say they stop 85%, 15% getting through. So how do they feel about it?
Yeah, you have to feel like, imagine, it's hard for Americans to understand, thank God, but imagine taking your kids to shelters and safe rooms at 2 a.m, 4 a.m, so on, because you got ballistic missiles coming at you. So the Israelis have dealt with a lot, but I think since October 7th, they've shown tremendous fortitude, and I think their attitude is, let's just finish this already. And I think the Israeli inclination is no deal. Let's resume military action. I think they're right about that, by the way.
Michael Makovsky, we'll see what happens. Every day matters, and the president really is in charge. And I know Israel is a fantastic partner.
Yes.
Michael Makovsky, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day, Brian.
You got it.